Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Krishna C. Nadella, and this is State of Mind. Today's topic is all about managing stress. College can be a stressful time for anyone. Some stress pushes you to meet goals by studying more, working harder, or sticking with a challenging task. But sometimes, stress reaches an unhealthy level that can prevent you from functioning well and meeting your goals. Your health, school performance, and social life can all suffer when stress becomes too much to handle. That's because stress can affect your mood and ability to think clearly. It can also weaken your immune system and make you more susceptible to getting sick. But never fear. Registered dietitian and wellness coach Kristen Carlucci is back with us a final time to provide us with some tips and insight to manage stress while in college. Kristen, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
So unlike the last episode where I had a top 10 list, I actually was able to go through the internet and find several tips that were made available that you agree with that we'd like to spend some time talking about today. So without much further ado, the first one is watch out for signs of stress overload. What is stress overload?
I think the first key is being able to identify when you're stressed, and sometimes we don't even realize it. The main things and symptoms that we'll experience include fatigue, irritability, feeling anxious, maybe angry, sad, being more susceptible to colds and flus, and also changes in sleep and appetite. So if you can identify that there's something a little off, I think that's really important in order to be able to then put into place the things and the tools that you need to do to help manage it.
Got it. Know your stress triggers. What are stress triggers? Everyone
gets stressed by different things, and everybody has different triggers. So it could be certain people, places, situations. I know a big one is public speaking, for example. A lot of people get very nervous giving presentations or talking in front of a large group, and the key is, if that's a stress for you, then make sure that you're going out and maybe working with a local group that helps you work on your public speaking, like a Toastmasters group. Or maybe it's just sitting at home over and over and practicing in front of people that you know until you feel comfortable.
Or the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the key is to just identify when those triggers are going to happen. Also with certain people or maybe social situations that tend to make you a little more anxious or nervous or feeling stressed, I think the key is when you know that you're already in a heightened state of stress to maybe try and avoid those people until you feel like you're in a calmer place. Or also ask yourself, should I be surrounding myself more with people that are really supportive and lift me up and might help me feel better?
Now, I would have to imagine there's a little bit of self-awareness that has to come in order to understand what your stress triggers are first.
Yes, and I think, sometimes we recognize them and sometimes we can be totally caught up in everything that's going on that we don't have that self-awareness to recognize it. So that's where it really comes into place to really ask yourself, okay, what are those things that, tend to make me feel nervous and stressed, and what can I do to try and mitigate it a little bit? Because the reality is stress, it's unavoidable. It's how you react to it.
Got it. We talked about this a few times, but exercise. Talk to me about the correlation or the inverse correlation between exercise and stress specifically.
So when we are in this heightened state of stress, we have all of these hormones, adrenaline, cortisol that are running through our body. And eventually, if it's continuing to rise and rise, we're going to feel burnt out. What exercise does is it really provides those feel-good endorphins that help to put us in a better mood, feel happy. Those, we call them those feel-good, happy hormones. It helps us to have that outlet for stress management that we often tend to need to just kind of distract ourselves from what's going on. And it's just a great way to know, okay, I'm taking some time for myself. It's a good distraction.
And as you said on previous episodes, exercise can be something as simply going for a brisk walk outside. It doesn't have to be hitting the gym and lifting weights.
Exactly. And I think you don't want the gym to become another source of stress. You want it to be something and you want it to be seen as, I'm going outside and I'm being active, or I'm going and taking my favorite dance class, or something along those lines where you really enjoy it, or making it a social thing. Go and join a friend for a walk out, in the park and see how you feel.
Got it. The next one you're going to have to spend some time on. Relax. How are you supposed to relax when you're stressed?
The key here is, and it's tough, we are in such a fast-paced society that we need to teach ourselves to slow down. And hopefully the key is to really get to a place where you're putting these stress management techniques in place on a constant, if not daily basis, rather than just knowing, oh, I'm really stressed in this moment, let me try and go to a yoga class and see if that makes me feel better.
Right.
I think, putting things in place like deep breathing exercises, meditation, yoga, but saying, just taking 5 to 10 minutes out of your day. If you can sit first thing in the morning in complete silence, close your eyes, and you don't realize until you actually do it how busy your mind is when you can just sit and say, all right, let me get rid of the to-do lists and all the things I need to get done for the day. Let me sit for just 5 minutes, set a timer, and just try and focus on breathing.
Right.
And you will see such a shift in when you open your eyes in that 5 minutes, what it feels like to really, for just a few minutes, say, I'm just going to put everything to the side and just focus on nothing. And
Right.
it's extremely refreshing. For people who in a moment or in a situation are feeling stressed and overwhelmed, what I find to be extremely helpful is deep breathing exercises, which you can do and no one knows that you're doing them.
Right.
So it's just sitting there and inhaling and counting to yourself, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhaling 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and repeat it 10 times. And same thing, the shift in your ability to, manage stress will completely change. You're getting more oxygen to the brain, because what often happens when we're stressed is we don't realize our whole bodies are tense and
Right.
we're kind of taking short breaths. We're not getting the oxygen we need to, function correctly. Right. And so that also helps to calm down the fight or flight response in our bodies.
So you mentioned something about just cleansing the mind, taking a moment for yourself. So I have to ask the question, how much does social media, technology, smartphones, iPads play a factor into all of this? I can't think of a moment when I don't see someone or myself on a phone, surfing, searching, texting, tweeting. How much of this is part of the problem?
I think it's a big part of the problem. When I work with people who have troubles sleeping, or they say they wake up and their mind is racing, oftentimes I ask, what do you do right up before you go to bed? And they say, I'm either watching TV, I'm on my iPad, I'm in bed surfing my phone.
Right.
So I think the key there is just to say, no technology at least 30 minutes before bed, just
Right.
to help with sleep, which will also make you feel better and help manage stress. But also setting time limits to that social media. And I think you find that it's extremely refreshing when you go on vacation and you kind of have to go off the grid for a bit and you're not checking emails, and
Right.
if you can't get service somewhere, you feel great.
Yeah.
At first you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, what am I going to do? I'm not connected.
Right.
And then once you get over that initial shock, you're like, wow, this feels refreshingly
liberating.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I actually go to bed, I make sure I have candles by the bed, not close enough that I'd be burned, but just to provide a little bit of more of a relaxing setting to help shut down the mind and help me enter that REM a lot easier.
Yeah, that's so important. And I always tell people, plug in your phone across the room and let it charge so it's not right next to your bed
Right.
table, because oftentimes they're like, oh, then I'll just play
Yeah.
around. So just put it on the other side of the bed, and it forces you to wake up easier the next morning because you need to get out of bed to turn off your phone alarm.
Perfect, I love that. Next one, manage your time well. Now we've talked about time management before, but it's a skill, isn't it? And something you have to practice, correct?
Yeah, I think setting that list of priorities, writing it down on paper or in some kind of app or tracker that helps you say, okay, this is what I need to get done, and then what's that big long-term goal, and what are the small things I need to do to accomplish it. And I think that just writing it down, getting it out of your mind, going back to the sleep thing, I hear so many people say, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking, oh, I need to do this the next day, and then they end up staying up all night because they're thinking, I don't want to forget about what I need to do. Just keep a pad of paper next to your bed, jot it down. You can't do anything at 3 in the morning anyways,
Right.
so go back to sleep and then handle it in the morning.
Do you find that even in the corporate world where you spend a lot of time working with Bloomberg, some of the top executives still have trouble with this component of managing their time?
Absolutely. I mean, you're pulled in so many different directions. You have a million meetings that you need to do, and I think, you have to really prioritize and say, as much as I want to be there for everybody, what do I need to get done to make sure that I'm getting my job done to the qualifications that
and their lives are a lot busier than a college student's.
Yes, much
Excellent.
busier.
This is interesting. Be realistic.
I think, when we want to do a little bit of everything, you really just need to, sit down and say, what can I realistically get done in my day, and what can I do that's going to help. What are the 3 things that I need to get done that's a realistic situation, and the other things I'll put to the back burner until you can address them.
It's kind of like in the previous episode where you talked about goal setting. Realistically be honest with yourself that it's something that you can accomplish. Make sure it's on paper so it becomes real, and give yourself a timeline so you can actually accomplish it.
Exactly.
Got it. This one is something we haven't talked about. Curb your caffeine. Now, a lot of people live and die by caffeine because it's what gets them through the day.
Caffeine is great because it gives you that short-term burst of energy, but in the long run, you end up getting that, you get tense and jittery if you have too much caffeine. I recommend, 1 cup a day of caffeine is okay, and then try and switch to alternatives that give you energy that aren't caffeine-related, where you don't get that jittery buzz after it, like drinking lots of water. That's something that we tend to overlook is, if we're dehydrated, our bodies are spending time trying to keep our body's hydration in check rather than making sure that our brains are going at 100%. So drinking water, getting outside for some fresh air, going for a quick walk, or getting a little bouts of exercise in there, that can be an alternative to the overload of caffeine.
Because caffeine is what it's really doing is masking the issue of the body saying, hey, you need to do things that help give you natural energy, not just this short burst and high, but whether it be getting some exercise, whether it be, standing up from your desk and taking a walk around the floor. And then the nutrition aspect versus coffee, soda, what would you recommend in place of that?
Going for, foods as close to nature as possible.
Right, not in a bag.
Not in a bag. You want to avoid the, the junk food and the sweets and the refined sugars and the energy drinks. Those are no good. Try and snack on some, apples or carrots and hummus or some yogurt or something, or nuts and seeds that are going to give you the energy that you need, that's actually sustainable and will provide you with the concentration and the brain power that you need to really get the job done.
Perfect. This one's a little bit scary. Don't self-medicate.
Yeah, and some people turn to smoking, alcohol, drugs, and in the long run, it's only impacting your stress levels more because it's negatively influencing your mood, your day-to-day, your behavior. So in general, you just want to avoid that.
In one of the previous episodes, we talked about with the board-certified psychiatrist the abuse of prescription drugs that's happening a lot more in college campuses. Help me understand, from the balance standpoint, why one would want to go down that road. Is it just that it's a quick fix? It's kind of like caffeine, but a much more, harder substance that will give you what you need?
It can be. I think for everybody, it's a little bit different. I think for many people and students that are in a new situation, it can be extremely overwhelming and maybe not realizing that there are alternative resources on campus to really help prevent that from happening, and counselors that you can speak to. Okay.
And so this one, it plays quite nicely into it, is reach out. And I have to imagine that's kind of what we were just about to talk about.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you have a strong support system around you and not be afraid to reach out to people when you need it, whether it's friends or family or if you're in the working world, a coworker, whoever it is, or taking advantage of the resources available as a college student to meet with somebody that can really help you with what you're dealing with.
So what's a good plan that one can put in place if they are in the college setting, or if they're a rising junior or senior about to enter it, in terms of putting together a plan to help manage stress? What would you recommend as some key advice that one should go into?
I would say get something daily that you can do every day, and going back to talking about the importance of managing your time and prioritizing and not overwhelming yourself, but plugging in time that you're doing something for you. So making that time where maybe it's every morning you wake up, first thing you do, close your eyes. If you have an app, they have meditation apps if you really wanted to do
That's
that.
true.
And just say, let me turn on a 5-minute meditation, close my eyes, or you can just do it in silence and just do some deep breathing and focus on the breath. Or saying I'm going to do 1 yoga class a week.
Right.
And kind of trying to get those things in place so that they become habit, not just something that you throw in there every once in a while. I think doing that is really important. I think it's making sure to fill your days and your weeks with things that you enjoy. And because I think that's sometimes our biggest stressor, is feeling like we don't have enough of that in our day-to-day, and that we're just kind of getting our to-do list checked off. But make sure to put things on your to-do list that you do enjoy.
So one thing I want to make sure that we establish, because I think there's always a negative connotation, stress is okay. And you mentioned that a few times over the last couple of episodes. It's just the managing of that stress that I think we have to spend a little bit more time doing so. So I have to ask the question, because it does start at some point with parenting. How can parents help their students? How can parents help their children, Freudian slip, manage stress better, not just necessarily once they're about to enter college, but even when they're much younger, when they're in middle school and high school? What steps can they take to ensure that they're putting good practices in place that their kids can then follow up on?
I think it comes down to instilling a sense of confidence, and also this idea of it's all in how you look at a situation. You can see the glass half full or half empty.
Right.
And I think that's a major life lesson, where if you're able to go into a situation, and it can be any situation, and say, you know what, I can choose to either approach it as this is the worst thing that can happen, or okay, this isn't my ideal situation, but what can I do to just get through it?
Right.
I think that's really important. And the kind of the buzzword that's going on in corporate wellness these days is, instead of considering it stress management, they like to call it resilience. And I think that's such an interesting word, because it's really focusing on, it's not managing your stress. That seems as if you're reactive to the stress. Resilience is being proactive and saying, okay, how can I approach this situation with a more positive attitude, and really focus on what I need to focus on, and not get swept up in things that are going to feel overwhelming.
Excellent. Well, I'm very glass half full that you're on the show, Kristen, so thank you for joining us again. How can our audience reach out to you?
You can reach out to me on social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. My handle is @Kristen Carlucci, and my website is www.kristencarlucci.com.
Well, thank you so much for the time, and I think our audience will be very grateful for the advice you gave.
Thanks.
On that note, that'll wrap up our show for today. If you like what you saw in today's episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe on the following social media platforms at the bottom of your screen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And remember, every life is a book. Make yours a bestseller. Have a good night.